there was a plan from a centralized place to execute these various acts of voter fraud, specifically focused on big cities, and specifically focused on, as you would imagine, big cities controlled by Democrats. There are other aspects of this fraud that at this point I really can't reveal. They conducted themselves in a way that suggests that there was fraud. One of the things that does involve fraud is not making it possible for the people who are supposed to inspect. That's a fraud. That's a fraud on the voters.
What we are really dealing with here and uncovering more by the day is the massive influence of communist money through Venezuela, Cuba, and likely China in the interference with our elections here in the United States.
If the United States caves to corruption or this type of election integrity disaster, then no election will be secure from here on out. And we all need to be keenly aware of that. We will not back down. We won't be intimidated. President Trump will not be intimidated.
Whoops. Yeah, it's not good. So why were they so sure there was fraud? Because they were doing it. Election fraud. There is no voter fraud. There's very, very little voter fraud in this country. You know, like maybe in the villages in Ocala. In Florida, you know, people vote 2 times, but they get caught. They actually get caught. Arizona just decided to look at 151 cases of voting fraud. 0 charges. There's nothing there. There's no there. There just isn't. Nevada, their attorney general just put out a statement saying that his office has received reports accusing the state's Republican Party of submitting the fake electoral votes for Donald Trump after the election was certified for Joe Biden. And he said there's been a sustained effort to invalidate the 2020 election and to downplay the shocking actions that took place afterward. My office cannot and will not accept any efforts to overturn a free and fair election. Voting rights are fundamental to our democratic republic, and we will continue to protect them. Dana Nessel, the attorney general in Michigan, she has referred the fake electors to the Department of Justice for investigation, only because it's now a national fraud effort, and it's not voter fraud, it's election fraud. Big, juicy, fat election fraud. And it was conducted by a clown car of freaking attorneys. And you thought that we were attacked by a tattooed buffalo horn wearing half-naked shaman. Oh, we were? Yeah, that was the other part of it. But the election fraud, never mind the violent attempt to overthrow the U.S. government, the insurrection portion of this seditious conspiracy. No, here we're talking about literally election fraud. You know, I mean, fake electors, that's fraud. Trying to overturn the election by, pressuring or leaning on or threatening the vice president of the United States, that's fraud. This is all fraud. It's incredible. You thought gerrymandering was fraud. It is. But this is out there in the open. And guess what happened yesterday? Guess what?
Breaking news just coming into us, actually from back on the Hill, from the House committee investigating January 6th. They are putting out subpoenas now for 4 allies of former President Trump's, including names Rudy Giuliani among them, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, Boris Epstein. People who the committee says were promoting those lies, those election lies on behalf of Mr. Trump, and who were trying to work to convince state legislators to overturn the legitimate election results.
There was massive election fraud in this here country. That's why they were so sure there was massive election fraud, because they were doing it. They were doing it. Now, I don't know if you'll remember this little detail, but Rudy's already under investigation for his contretemps in Ukraine, for shaking down the Ukrainian government, trying to get the Ukrainian government to find dirt on Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and not registering as a foreign lobbyist. And, now we all find out that he had intimidated and, threatened to withhold money for Ukraine's defense against a Russian invasion, which, by the way, we're sitting here wondering if it's going to happen, right? And of course, we're going to be on the side of Ukraine if it does. We won't put boots on the ground in Ukraine. We will actually help Ukraine fight Russia. That's what we'll do. But it's an amazing story about the Ukraine interference and the intervention there, all to get dirt during the election, during the cycle, right? During the electoral cycle, trying to find, a government that would be willing to say that Hunter Biden, did something bad. Hunter Biden did something bad? Yes, Hunter Biden did something bad. Can you say that? No, because he didn't do anything bad. We don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, well, the president of the United States is my personal friend. So he's under investigation for that there thing. The subject of the first impeachment. I don't know how. I mean, I should actually monitor myself, because that's all I have control over. But each time and every time we talk about the former president, we should, twice impeached former president who received 57 votes to remove him the second time. Not quite 60, but almost everybody, real close. For what? For a violent insurrection that came at the very end of massive electoral fraud. All right. So the select committee subpoenaed yesterday Rudy Giuliani and that Jenna Ellis girl. Holy crap. Sidney Powell, who I think could claim insanity and get away with it. I really do. I don't think she's here. I'm not sure, but I don't think she's completely here. I mean, the woman has, alleged over and over and over again that Cuba had something to do with our election, that Hugo Chavez, who's been dead since, 2013, had something to do with our election. She's being sued by the election, by the companies. First of all, Dominion was only used, in one state? I mean, it's just amazing what you can make people in this country believe in this day and age when it's real easy to Google. It is shocking. But I think she was so insane and so committed to her own, insanity that she was able to freely assert that a dead man rigged our election and that somehow China and Cuba also, but she's being sued for, over $1 billion at this point. So yesterday they subpoenaed her, they subpoenaed Rudy. They subpoenaed Boris Epshteyn. Now, Boris Epshteyn was like a campaign advisor. He's also an attorney. He's a lawyer. So I wonder which one of the lawyers is the lawyer that the fake electors are saying called them and told them to show up at their state capitals on a certain day at a certain time to sign off a lie, to sign their names under a lie, saying that they were duly certified electors in the 2020 election. Now, some of them are starting to, squeak and squeal because you do have states now. You have Nevada, obviously, just read you the AG's statement. You have Michigan, Dana Nessel, who referred stuff to the Department of Justice because while she has enough evidence and enough to go on to charge people in Michigan for doing this election fraud, for engaging in, forging documents and sending them as if they were real documents, she understands that she doesn't have jurisdiction in any of the other states and that the Department of Justice does. And she referred it to the Department of Justice, so the Department of Justice, who does have this jurisdiction to connect the dots, can connect the dots between these 7 states that engaged in massive election fraud. Don't get confused between voter fraud and election fraud. Voter fraud hardly ever happens in this here country. I mean, hardly ever. In Florida, over the last 3 years, we've prosecuted exactly 3 people. And I know of 4 who voted twice. Do you know what I'm saying? It's very unusual. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to randyrhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.